To the death of the modern-day coalition, which met its bitter end yesterday following a breakdown in negotiations between the Liberal and National parties. The Nationals' leadership team, consisting of David Littleproud, Bridget McKenzie and Kevin Hogan, pulled the pin on the coalition after Liberal leader Susan Lee refused to agree to the Nationals' list of 4 non-negotiables. These were nuclear energy, supermarket divestiture, the $20 billion Regional Future Fund and universal service obligations to ensure reliable mobile phone coverage in regional areas. The end of the coalition comes as many National MPs expressed their anger at the fact that their party signed up to net zero obligations, and as the Australian reports, this was especially apparent in yesterday's decision because the final trigger for David Littleproud and his team was the fact that the Liberal leader said she could not agree to a request from Mr Littleproud allowing his shadow cabinet ministers a free vote on contentious issues, including net zero emissions by 2050. Joining me now for more on this are Sky News contributors Prue McSween and Tina McQueen. Tina, is this a case of disunity leading to death? Is this the end of Conservatives in Australia?
Oh, look, I hope not. I think it's been done out of sheer frustration. To be honest, Rita, this has been, on the card since Turnbull's leadership of the Liberal Party. That started to drag the party to the left and then continued. We haven't been there to support our base with strong Conservative views. And I think the Nats, rightly so, have said, enough. I've had enough. Particularly things like phone coverage seems like a little thing, but as someone with a daughter living in the country, I travel, 2 hours of my 4-hour journey, there is no phone coverage. So, but I can tell you, Rita, there's been a lot of Liberal donors that donated the Liberal Party that have contacted me specifically offering their support to Matt Canavan. There's a lot of support out there for Matt Canavan and where the National stance at the moment. So, look, clearly, ideally, they have to get together to form government at some stage for the next election if they hope to win. But, I admire the Nationals. Some of them are giving up money, have a massive drop in pay and to stand on a principle. And I think that's, I take my hat off to that. And that shows a true politician of conviction.
That's a very good point there, Prue. It's been underreported. There are going to be pay cuts here, and you don't see politicians often opting for a pay cut, but that's what they're doing, and they're doing it on principle.
Well, it's nice to see politicians with principle for a change. It's not just a pay cut, of course, it'll be a staff cut. So they're really, a lot of people have been saying they're just posturing and, spoiled brats and, playing to their constituents. But I think it had to happen. And I don't believe that you can trust that Susan Lee, who started off, I was impressed with her first speech, but we know that she's woke. We know that she's a wet. We know that the moderates, Photius has his tentacles everywhere within the Liberals. And so many of them want to take it to the left, to the centre left. And that, of course, will spell, incredibly bad news for the true Conservative voter. So I think it was great that Matt Canavan sort of was the person who threw the grenade in. I think Littleproud, if he continues supporting net zero, is a dead man walking. It's time for the Liberals to wake up to themselves and not even consider drifting to the moderate side and Labor light, and they need to get their finger out and start, announcing policies that are going to better reflect their core constituents who are Conservatives.
Rita, can I just add, if the Nationals ran in Susan Lee and Angus Taylor's seat, they would win. So I think Susan Lee and Angus Taylor are going to have to carefully consider their options. I have no doubt that Nationals would win both those seats.
Well, let's talk about that. But first, about the path to reconciliation. There are Liberal Party stalwarts urging for the reconciliation to happen very quickly. Former Prime Minister John Howard is one of those stalwarts. He told the Australian Financial Review, "My advice is to reform as soon as possible and resolve their policy differences within the framework of a coalition if they are separated for too long, they will increase their differences and make resolution more difficult. But that is looking unlikely amid suggestions that David Littleproud and Susan Lee do not like each other. The Australian reports Susan Lee intends not to reform a coalition with David Littleproud's Nationals before the 2028 election. Tina, what is that going to mean? Would an extended period of a split that lasts 3 years, perhaps beyond, see these two parties become too dramatically different, see the Nationals really go back to their roots and see the Liberals become some sort of teal alternative, which is not going to be appealing to the bulk of the country?
No, if the Liberals go down the teal track, it's going to be disaster. You know, they'll be non-existent. Look, maybe if these two leaders, who I really think they don't get on, perhaps there may be a change in leadership for both parties to resolve this issue. I mean, who knows? But clearly, common sense and anyone with a half a brain knows that the coalition has to exist with, as I said, any hope to form government. But very, very stubborn. But honestly, the left of the party cannot, the left of the Liberal Party cannot take over, or will be doomed. So I say, you know, good on the Nats, and hopefully there's enough people in the Liberal Party that will look after their Conservative base.
Prue, can you see that happening, leadership changes at both parties? If you did have a Matt Canavan-led Nationals and a Angus Taylor-led Liberal Party, you can see that reconciliation happening quite easily and hopefully walking away from policies like net zero and giving Australians a real choice in an election, not just being shadows of or echoes of Labor.
Well, I certainly think Matt Canavan is the man for the job. My jury's out on Angus Taylor because, while he's no doubt very bright, he's not great at prosecuting an argument. So he's, you know, and I like Ted O'Brien, although, you know, he is a moderate, which worries me, but I thought he was very impressive during the nuclear debate. But, you know, he's yet to be proven. I mean, if he's going to be, you know, one of those, you know, even a hidden woke moderate within the ranks, then that wouldn't work. So I believe it's going to mean that they will have to have a change of leadership, and I think that Littleproud and Lee are probably dead people walking.
The other death knell, Rita, for Susan Lee would be if she introduces quotas. Now, I was wildly misreported in a newspaper at the weekend saying I supported quotas with nothing further than the truth, absolute rubbish. But if she attempts to introduce quotas, I'll be one of the first women to walk away from the Liberal Party myself and join the Nats.
Good on you.
Oh, she can't go down that road, surely. But can you see, Tina? I know, and it's again, she's got a history of flip-flopping on just about every issue, so God knows where she's going to land. But if there isn't a reconciliation here, Tina, can you see the Nationals running candidates in her seat? Can you see the Nationals unseating possibly the opposition leader in an election?
Look, it'll depend on their fundraising capabilities. And as I said, the people that have contacted me are offering, former Liberal donors, offering to support Matt Canavan and the Nationals. I'm quite alarmed at. If they have the budget to do it, they will run in those seats. They will run in as many seats as possible. And like I said, I mean, Susan Lee's seat was formerly a national seat. It's only the coalition deal that no National ever, you know, ran in her seat that Susan Lee's there. So she knows herself that the Nationals would absolutely take over her seat, and Angus Taylor as well.
Now, Prue, you mentioned Ted O'Brien, and this is further proof that Liberals and Nationals aren't on very good terms right now. The Deputy Opposition Leader, Ted O'Brien, decided last minute to pull out of a joint TV appearance with National Senator Matt Canavan earlier this day.
We asked Deputy Liberal Leader Ted O'Brien on the show last night and he agreed. This morning, out of courtesy, we told him Matt Canavan was coming on too. All seemed okay. And then 20 minutes ago, his team rang saying he won't come on with Canavan. I mean, you can't make it up. It's like MAFS, the Canberra edition. Matt Canavan is in the house though. Matty, good morning to you. Nice to see you this morning.
Morning, Carl. How are you, mate?
How did you sleep last night?
Oh, not bad, mate.
Carl Stefanovic compared that to an edition of Maths. Tina, what was that about? Why would he refuse to appear on a program with Matt Canavan?
Oh, well, Carl's implying there's some lovers tiff, some breakup. I think, look, Matt is a star performer. He knows his stuff. I do think there'd be a little bit of nervousness in Ted O'Brien that he would say the wrong thing and goof up. But that's a cowardly thing to do 20 minutes prior to appearance on a show. Because I tell you one thing, Matt Canavan will never back down from a fight.
No, he would be appearing on a program with anybody from Sarah Hanson-Young to Ted O'Brien. Bizarre. Now, let's have a look at how some of the leftist papers are reacting to the split. The Sydney Morning Herald has gone with this angle, claiming the Nationals once got their way because they argued their corner and didn't make empty threats. Now the junior coalition party is reduced to a juvenile outfit. That seems a bit harsh, Prue, given that they did pretty well at the recent election. It was the Liberals who failed comprehensively. The Nationals seem to know who they are a lot more than the Liberals, who have got this identity crisis at the moment.
Look, Rita, the credibility of these media outlets has just gone down the toilet. When you look at of course they're going to, blame the Nats and take that stance because they've all got agendas now. Most journalists have agendas who are writing for these lefty papers.
Tina, you could have a situation where, the gap between the parties is enormous now with the number of seats they hold. So you could have the Nationals holding more seats and being the official opposition party compared to the Liberals. I mean, that is not beyond the realms of possibility.
No, not at all. I mean, you've only got to look at Nigel Farage, what he's done. And I think the Nationals have been following that closely as well, and I think has given them the confidence to really dig in their heels and stand on their principles and realise that they can win over because, as you said, they performed very well in the federal election. I have no doubt they're eyeing off a number of seats they can pick up and doing their numbers closely. And I think the lefties in the Liberal Party have to acknowledge this and be very careful of the direction they take, Rita.
Now, moving on to other issues, the ABC is failing to walk the talk when it comes to gender equality. You see there's a Workplace Gender Equality Agency data released today, and it shows that the ABC has a median gender pay gap of 9.8%, favouring men. However, the same agency revealed last year that Sky News Australia does not have a gender pay gap. In fact, the women here are paid slightly more than men on average, just 1% more. Prue, looks like the ABC perhaps needs to launch an investigation into the ABC.
Well, on this and many other things, Rita, but they can't even define what a woman is. So how do they know, what the disparity is? I mean, maybe they're just deluded by it all. I just find it amusing that the one organisation that they hate most, Sky, is leading the way. They're just, they're hypocrites, they're bedwetters, they're pathetic. We know that. And the quicker they can become
could we see
loose.
Tina, could we see a policy shift from the coalition if it becomes the coalition again? Certainly you would expect hopefully the Nationals to take a stronger line against the public broadcaster because we've seen the Liberals in power and they've done nothing to curb the ABC's activism or even hold them accountable for not living up to their own rules. I mean, they're the ones who are pushing this gender wage gap nonsense constantly, but they don't practice it themselves.
Yeah, look, we wasted a lot of years in power not doing a thing. I mean, Tony Abbott once one thing where no minister was allowed to appear on the ABC, but, you need to hit them where it hurts. It's just ridiculous. I do think for the coalition form government, we do need to slash that ABC budget. No one watches it. It's of no use, not even the regional areas where most regional areas would much prefer, and the studies show Sky is much more popular in the regional areas now than the ABC, so they serve no purpose anywhere.
Make them subscription television.
That's right, yeah.
That's it. If you want to view it, you pay for it, like you do
Yep.
with Sky News and many other options. Now, a new Salvation Army survey has revealed some shocking data of the. This was a survey of vulnerable South Australians, and more than half of those surveyed said they are skipping meals, while nearly a quarter eating expired or spoiled food in order to make ends meet. 56% said they were skipping meals so their children could eat. And Tina, shockingly, pensioners are talking about opting for cat food or dog food because that's the only way they're going to get any sort of nutrition. I mean, this is just shocking to read about in a first world country.
It's terrible, Rita. It really saddens my heart, but it's no surprise. And this isn't just a recent thing. This has been happening for a few years now. Where I live in Sydney, across the road in the park, and it breaks my heart every time, and I will make the effort this evening. There's a woman living in a tent, an elderly woman, and I thought maybe it was just a one or two night. I've been told she's been there for weeks. So this is really, really shocking. There are more and more homeless people when you walk up George Street around Circular Quay. We've got Vivid starting soon. I don't know what these poor buggers are going to do because many of them, the only shelter they get. But the pensioners have been incredibly hard hit and for a long time have been resorting to eating very little, or as you say, dog or cat food. It's disgraceful.
Absolutely, just absolutely appalling. Before you ladies go, I want to just bring you some international news. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni had a massive diplomatic win. She hosted a key trilateral meeting between the US Vice President JD Vance and the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And she's also now backing, Tina, Donald Trump's suggestion that the Vatican could help mediate talks between Ukraine and Russia. This is quite a starring role for Meloni, Tina. She is offering her assistance in that. She's backed Trump's proposal, and she's really become the crucial leader in Europe right now, particularly in trade talks with the US.
Rita, she deserves this starring role. She's been a really great leader, and she's always been an admirer and understood what Trump is doing and trying to do. And I think she'll play a crucial role moving forward. And I'm sure her and JD Vance got on remarkably well. And hopefully with her pressure and the assistance of Trump and the input of the Pope, that finally something can happen.
Prue, I remember when she was elected, the coverage in the Western media was disgusting. They were painting her as some extremist, some threat to democracy, some radical fascist woman. And she's nothing of the sort, and she's proved that. And she's possibly the most popular leader in Europe right now.
Yeah, well, of course, anybody that they can crucify, they'll do, and call a fascist, you know what they're like. She is so impressive. I just wish we had a Meloni here. We need someone to come in and kick some ass, have balls and backbone and understand that most people, really, thinking people, she would represent. And Susan Lee, the Liberals need to understand that this is what resonates with people, not this kind of woke nonsense. And they also need to understand that in 3 years' time, when, again, the cost of living, there'll be more people on the streets, the cost of living is going to really impact even more because of the energy disgrace of Bowen, that, they're barking up the wrong tree. People will be really wanting an alternative.
Well, let's hope they wake up to those realities. We live in hope. Prue McSween, Tina McQueen, thank you so much for your time tonight.